Joining us now, Nick Freitas. He's one of three candidates running for U.S. Senate. He wants to be the Republican nominee to go up against the Tim Kaine machine. Now, this will be settled in a primary. That's right, not a crazy convention, not a committee meeting, not something you rig. You actually go to the polls on June 12th and you vote. In the U.S. Senate primary, all you have to do is be a registered voter and say you want a Republican ballot. There's no party registration in Virginia. You just go in and vote. Say, I want a Republican ballot. And there's three candidates: Nick Freitas, House of Delegates member, Prince William County Chairman Corey Stewart, and former statewide candidate for Lieutenant Governor Bishop E.W. Jackson. Stewart the favorite. But some people say Nick Freitas closing in. He's joining us now. Nick, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me on, John.
Nick, I'm getting the feeling polling is tightening a little bit. I mean, Stewart's way ahead. Normally, though, when this happens, you get people looking for a fresh alternative to Corey Stewart. I've got some now people telling me this race could be a little bit closer than we originally thought. I know you've got your own internal analysis going on. Do you feel like you're closing the gap, Nick?
Oh, absolutely. And I realize every candidate has to say that, but I think that, again, when you look at the metrics that we have available to us, again, when you look at the grassroots polling that has taken place, when you look at the people that are coming behind, the endorsements and whatnot, I don't think there's any question that the momentum is completely on our side. I mean, obviously, we've got to work really hard all the way up until the day of the primary and that day to ensure that we can up our name recognition. But I think what you're seeing is the overall favorables are certainly going in our direction. So no, I'm very confident about it. Our entire team is working every day across the state. We can sleep on June 13th. But no, the momentum's in our favor, and we're very excited about that.
Nick, let's talk about some of the policies, and I want to get one of my topics today, the Trump trade policies. And right now you got Pierre Trudeau III, or whatever his name is, the Canadian Prime Minister. He's whining. The European Union, I guess they think the Marshall Plan is still going on. They're complaining about the steel and aluminum tariffs. Now we've got the Chinese saying, well, we don't really need tariffs. We're going to buy $70 billion of something sometime in the future. No dates or products, but yeah, we'll make you that empty promise just like we did on the Paris climate change accords and everything else. But you got the president saying, look, I've had enough. Now, though, you've got Mexico says, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. 20% tariff on whiskey and pork. Now, Virginia has a $68 million export business, farmers exporting pork out of Virginia to Mexico. Warner and Kaine putting a statement out saying, oh, this is going to be a disaster for Virginia. How do you stand on this issue?
Well, I think one thing that I don't think the president's getting credit for here is that the president understands that tariffs are not a good thing, right? The president understands that tariffs are a tax. And anytime that you're raising taxes on American consumers, that's not what you want to be doing. What the president also understands is that we've gotten ourselves involved in some really bad trade deals where we open up our markets and then foreign countries don't open up their markets. And so I don't think the president is engaging in any kind of long-term trade war strategy or something like that. I think what he's trying to demonstrate to some of these other countries is that just as we've opened up our markets to their products, which is a good thing, they need to open up their markets to our products. And I think what that comes down to is an understanding that in many cases these guys need us more than we need them. But again, let's understand tariffs are a tax. They're not a good thing. I think the president is engaging in a temporary strategy right here to demonstrate that opening up markets is what's going to be good for everyone involved. It's going to be good for our citizens, our workers, our industries, and it's going to be good for their workers and citizens and industries. So, again, I think giving the president some wiggle room is good here because I'm confident that he understands that tariffs are not a long-term strategy.
Well, the bottom line, the only reason he's putting the tariffs on is because he's saying we're getting screwed by these other countries because we buy their products, they get our cash, they lock our products out. So if there was fair and balanced trade, there'd be no need. He's not doing tariffs to raise revenue, okay? That's not the purpose of it. What he's saying is, look, if you're going to subsidize industries and you're going to dump products into the U.S. and put our workers out of a job and put our industries out of business and we can't provide it, then we're going to have to even the playing field. And so you're going to have to stop dumping your stuff because I'm putting this tariff on it. Nobody's going to buy it, and it makes our manufacturers competitive. I mean, if there were no tariffs on either side, that wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, but John, I think we also got to we've also got to look at how the economy works and how it responds to tariffs. I mean, yeah, you're right. If you pass a steel tariff, that will be better for the steel industry in the United States. But it's going to hurt every other single industry in the United States, and those are also American jobs that actually use steel because now the price of the product went up, and so the price of all the subsequent products go up. That's less money companies have to hire people. That's less money they have for bonuses. That's less money they have for expansion. Not to mention the fact that when other countries are basically taxing their own citizens, because that's what a subsidization is. They're taxing their own citizens in order to provide cheaper products for American consumers. That's not in and of itself a bad thing. I think, again, the goal here is not to punish American workers or consumers through tariffs in order to hope, in the hopes that it will get other people to change their mind. The strategy here I think that the president is using is, look, open markets on both sides is the goal. That's what we want to move toward, and I think the president is engaged in a strategy to try to achieve that. But I think we need to be careful about how we explain the economics of this. And again, it goes back to at the end of the day, when you walk into the store, you should be able to buy what you want. I don't care who manufactured it, because that's your choice as a consumer. That's freedom in the marketplace. And ultimately, that's a lot better for American workers because it means that they have higher purchasing power, and it means that American workers are also focusing on those industries which make us the most competitive across the world. So I don't want to misrepresent what I think the president is trying to do here, which is, again, opening markets, not closing them. I think he's using a temporary strategy to demonstrate to some of these countries that have dealt very unfairly with us in trade that they're not going to get away with it. And I think that's what we need to put the focus on, is that the president is trying to move us ultimately toward a much more open and freer trading environment, which is the best course of action for our people and our workers and our industries.
Sure it is, Nick, but when you talk about people should have the freedom to buy whatever they want as a U.S. consumer, I mean, that is a very myopic view. And that's like saying, look, I'm afraid that I might pay another 15 cents for my iPhone 10. I mean, if you allow countries to subsidize products and then dump them in the United States, they only have one purpose of doing that. Why are they doing that? They have one purpose, and that is to take those American industries and put them out of business because they're not competitive. So they corner the market. So to say, well, you know what, that's a small price to pay because I can save 5 cents on a 6-pack of Pabst at the store, that's an insane argument. Because if we can't make steel and you can't make aluminum, you don't have a country.
John, that's not the argument I'm making at all. The argument I'm making is that what you don't do is you don't punish your own industries, you don't punish your own producers, you don't punish your own consumers because China decided to subsidize something. Again, you're making kind of a Keynesian argument here, John, and I don't think it plays out well in economic history. And again, I don't think it's what the president's trying to achieve. This president is the most successful businessman we've ever had in the White House. Again, he understands that you don't punish our industries by raising taxes because, like I said before, if you raise taxes,
that's a straw man argument.
It doesn't help others.
That's a bells and whistles, Pavlov's dog, ring the bell, get a treat argument. It has nothing to do with raising taxes. What the president, Nick, is saying is, look, if you're going to subsidize materials and dump them in the United States so you put our workers out of business, we're simply not going to allow that. We're not going to allow you to do that. So we're going to put a tariff on that so that we even the playing field so that our manufacturers can make steel, make aluminum, make washing machines, make things that he's put these tariffs on in order to get jobs back and wages up. It's about wages and jobs. And so that's what the president is attempting to do. And he's saying, look, when you're dumping things in the U.S. that are under cost, if you look at Canada, they've been doing this forever. They have, I'll take a simple industry. They have a glut in trees. So what they do is they subsidize their timber industry. You go in Home Depot or Lowe's, any piece of plywood you buy to do anything, made in Canada, from Canada, every single one. You can't buy U.S. wood. Why? Because the Canadian government, under Trudeau and his predecessors, subsidized the industry, dump the timber into the U.S., so our timber industry is devastated. Loggers are out at work. People go out of business. And then they can charge whatever they please eventually, Nick, because we have no industry and we have no jobs in that business.
John, I'm sorry. I've looked at this historically going all the way back 200 years. And if you're honestly telling me that it is a good economic strategy for a country to steal money from its taxpayers in order to subsidize a particular industry in the hopes that they will eventually monopolize that industry, I'm sorry, John, it doesn't work. The countries that try it become poorer, not wealthier. So again, let's not misrepresent what this
keep their jobs,
do, which I think is a good thing.
Nick, they keep their jobs. They keep their industry. I mean, do you think, how can you be a legitimate country in the 21st century and you don't make steel? We used to be the biggest steel producer in the world. Now we can't make it because our steel companies can't make a profit on selling it. Nobody buys our steel.
John, I'll tell you exactly why. And this is another area where Trump has got it right when so many other people have got it wrong. And I think in this one, I disagree with I don't disagree with your insight. I disagree with your approach. Trump has realized that one of the primary reasons why American businesses have had a hard time competing is not because we don't subsidize our industries enough. It's not because we don't tax other industries enough. It's because we have overtaxed and overregulated our own industries in this country, making it cheaper to do business 8,000 miles away. Two of the biggest accomplishments of this administration so far have been the tax reform, which allows American producers and industries to keep more of their own money, which always benefits both employees and consumers, and the regulatory reform. In fact, John, let's just switch here for a second. If we want to talk about one of the most substantive things that President Trump has done, it has been the regulatory reform. The problem is that he's had to do it entirely through executive order right now because we haven't legislated it. We need to actually take the good regulatory reform that the president has done and enshrine it into law. And guess what the holdup is? The Senate. So, again, this is why we need people that go in there that understand that President Trump understands the free market. He's trying to make it freer. The tax reform, the regulatory reform, those are the two single largest drivers of the increase in the economic productivity that we're seeing in this country that is benefiting everyone. I mean, I think it is incredible that we're seeing unemployment not only go down, we're seeing workforce participation go up, and we're seeing various communities that have been struggling for 8 years now on the rebound, coming back. But again, if we do not enshrine that regulatory reform that President Trump has been able to do through executive order right now, I'm telling you, we're going to be in trouble because another president will be able to come in and completely wipe it all out with the stroke of a pen.
Nick, I got a couple minutes here very quickly. 22 Republicans now in the House of Representatives. They need 3 more to gang up with all the Democrats and getting a clean DACA bill. Basically amnesty, no strings attached, no regulation reform, no immigration reform, just amnesty. If you were in the U.S. Senate, how would you handle this DACA situation?
Well, John, I think, you got to hand it to the left. They've done a great job of arguing for DACA as if this is a question between whether or not you care about immigrant children or not. And that's not what this debate is about. This debate is about how do we set up what the president has asked for, which is essentially an easy-to-understand, merit-based immigration system that encourages people to come to this country the right way. And what Democrats have done is they've set themselves up to benefit politically from the problem more than they do the solution. And so they think they're going to be able to do this during the midterm in order to try to give the administration a black eye, and they're going to do it in the name of compassion, but it has nothing to do with compassion. It demonstrates no compassion toward our people in the United States. It demonstrates no compassion to the people that are actually waiting in line to come to this country, and it creates a perverse incentive where we continue to tell the world that if you flaunt our laws, that we will create some sort of pathway for you. And it is completely unfair. So I think that it's very, very shameful. But I expect more Republicans to get out there and not only make the fiscal argument or the security argument for immigration reform and border security. I want them to start making the moral argument for it. Because, Republicans are not anti-immigrant. Some of the most loyal Americans you will ever meet are immigrants because they fully understand what it is to flee a country that does not have rule of law. And unfortunately, we have a couple of Republicans that are being incredibly weak-kneed right now. I think it's not only unsound from a political perspective, I think it's morally incorrect. So I would vote against it, and I would encourage my colleagues to say, look, we have an opportunity here to genuinely fix immigration to where it's better for U.S. citizens, and it's certainly more fair to people that are trying to come to this country legally. We need to take the opportunity to finally address this problem and do it effectively.
All right, we're out of time. I want to thank Nick Freitas for being with us. Nick running for U.S. Senate. That will be decided in a June 12th Republican primary. So be sure and turn out for that. Early voting over, absentee voting over. You got to show up now if you haven't voted on June 12th and pick your candidate. Nick, people want more info. Where do they go?
Please go to nick4senate.com. That's Nick, the number 4senate.com. People are going to be hearing a lot of things in the last week. I always just say, follow Reagan. Trust but verify. Go on our website. Look at our voting record. I think people will be confident that I will govern and legislate exactly the way I campaign.
Nick Freitas closing, trying to pull the upset. Corey Stewart, the favorite. But polls tightening.